Welcome back to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm here with Linsey Davis, Emmy Award-winning journalist and best-selling children's book author, and we're talking about her latest children's book, How High is Heaven? Linsey, I'm struck and hit by the proverb of 22:6, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Most of us, especially if we grew up in church, heard that or heard our parents say that or our pastor say that. But I often think we don't always value from the standpoint of the child, of not just, taking them to church and making them read the Bible and praying, but explaining, finding ways to explain on a level, on a child appropriate level, that they can understand what this is all about, why this is important, why grandma makes me get on my knees and pray every night, why do I have to go to church when I would rather stay home and play, or any of those things. And I happen to think that your latest book, How High is Heaven, is just a wonderful opportunity to begin to have those kinds of conversations. Talk to me about how you see things as a children's author, as a woman of faith, and as someone who has a son that, if you're not a parent, you don't understand when kids come and ask you certain questions, and you're like, oh my God, how do I explain this?
Hard questions, and that's the funny thing, that based on my job, I ask the questions for a living. I'm not used to giving those answers, but and again, this is something that happened in the wake of George Floyd. We had an educator come on my show, and he said, if they're old enough to ask the question, they're old enough to hear the answer. And that really helped me as a parent, because there were so many hard questions that, my son was asking, that I was like, boy, what are you ready for? I don't know what to say. And I don't really want to put this albatross around your neck, being a Black young male in this country, and the implications of that. And so that was kind of a really interesting time to navigate. And I'm sure, I'll get those hard questions again about some other topic at some point around the bend. But as far as to your initial point of faith, faith is such a significant, the most significant part of my life. God is the most significant part of my life. And so my greatest hope as a parent, for me, is that I would raise a son who loves the Lord, who is trying to, his best to follow that path. And to that end, my initial point in with the first book that I did was after my son was, I don't know, he was like 2 or 3. It was shortly after he started talking, and we were in the car, and he said, "Does God open up the flowers?" And I was like really struck by that question. Again, a hard question, but then I was, just because, that my mindset, it's like, well, how do I answer this exactly? Because this is somebody who's just learning words at this point. But so I decided at that moment, this is what I'm going to write about, the celebration of the everyday blessings, that when you think, like, as you were saying, Alfred, like when you look at life through the eyes of a child, right? When you get back to that imagination versus intellect, right? And so there's an excitement there. So when it would snow and my son would hold out his hand and the snowflakes would come, and meanwhile I'm like dreading, like, oh my goodness, it's gonna take so much longer to get into work with snow, it's dangerous, it's icy, it's slick. And he's looking just like, Mom, look at that, look at that snowflake. And I remember still that day that happened, and I was like, when was the last time I looked at a snowflake, one individual snowflake? And there's so many things that he'd get excited when seeing a butterfly, and he'd want to chase after the butterfly, or, a sunrise or a sunset. And he was really looking at it with those new eyes, seeing for the first time. And I just think that we just get kind of glazed over, that all kind of gets, we're bogged down with the other things that we're focused on, right? We're not really taking in all of God's beauty all around us. And so at any rate, this was, to me, we had the baby scripture books and the baby Bible books and all of that, but I wanted something in a way that he could just relate to, as far as, look at this canvas all around us, look at how God has just painted and created all of that around us, and and us. And so this was my attempt at a gentle introduction to who God is for a child. Again, really just kind of talking about the creation all around us, and how we can just relish it and look at it with renewed eyes for parents who become jaded, and this is something that I will still say that this was, I was thinking about in my book prior to this, Stay This Way Forever. And then I was so thrilled to see this still just a few weeks ago, but my son skips, and I'm so happy every time I see him skip, because there's some point in our life, Alfred, where we stop skipping,
Yes.
where we stop. We're just so driven to get to where we are that we're driving there, we're walking fast, we're not taking it all in, and
I'm back to skipping though. I'll let you know that at plus 60 over 60, I'm back.
that is good to
It's never
know.
too late. Never too late.
And that's what I try. When I see him skipping, I skip along. And I'm sure I look crazy, to everybody else, but I'm just enjoying and relishing that moment. To me, it's this just, he hasn't been weighed down by the world.
Mm.
And I look at that day with dread of like, when will he stop skipping, but I look and I find the joy in that. And to me, that's kind of, a little, evidence of God and that spirituality of just being happy, right? And that kind of state. And so a long-winded way of saying that was the intent of the first book, was just kind of making sure that I can pass that. If he doesn't learn or gain or glean anything else from me, that he will love God. That's my goal.
You talk about the joy of a child, and we've talked about seeing the world through the eyes of a child, and the joy. In that way, I can say that the children bless us if we allow them to. In that way, I'm a first-time grandfather. My grandson is 8 months old. Thank you. And it did kind of reawaken in me what I had when his father and his aunts. I have 3 girls and a boy, one man and 3 young women. But I remember how much fun it was to be with them when they were, little. And like you said, they marveled at things like leaves and why did the leaves change color, and
right.
and reclaiming that joy for us is an opportunity whenever we're around children, whether they're our own or others. And I just think that's a true value of what you're bringing to the table through the eyes of your son, and what you're trying to communicate to him about God and faith and joy through this book and all of your books.
Well, I'm hopeful. That's the goal. That's the goal. And I hope that is what comes across. I think that is a thread through them all. I really think that in the end, God is love. And I think that the books are about love in different ways, right? I think that first is about like, look at God's love, like all around us. The second book, One Big Heart, is like, love your neighbor, really, right? And then the third book, Stay This Way Forever, I think is know how much you are loved, by your parent, by God. And this latest book, I think, is about, still holding on and appreciating and being able to embrace those who have gone on, right? That love still remains, even though, we're separated for a time.
Well, it communicates, and again, in a way that a child can not only understand, but find joy in what we mean when we say eternal life. Like you said, that it's not goodbye, it's see you later.
Right.
And again, when we become adults, we start trying to really like logically explain that, but a child gets it. Oh, I'm gonna see grandma later. Okay, bet. Yeah. I love my grandma. She's worth waiting for.
Yes. Yeah.
Whenever I see her, I'll be happy to see her. And now I can go on and live my life and play with my toys and have fun and enjoy. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful message, not just for your son and children in general, but for us. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I think that any effective and good children's book doesn't just speak to the 4 and 5-year-old set. It speaks to the reader as well. It speaks to the parent. There's some kind of, it's like, in a really great animated film, there's like 2 languages happening simultaneously. They're kind of the jokes for the little kids, and there's the double entendre, that higher, more elevated message for the adults. And I'm hopeful that my books are able to do that.
I'm sure they will. And I'll say this as we kind of close out our conversation. Children's books are so important. My second oldest daughter will be having her birthday in a few days. She's in her early 30s. She still holds on to I think the book is called I'm Not Afraid. I'm trying to remember the exact title, but it was a book by Maya Angelou. Children's book I bought her when she was really little. And she surprises me because she brings it up all the time. Those really touch and have a place in their hearts when they connect with them like that. And I'm sure that's going to be the case for How High is Heaven and your other books. Linsey, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Be Lifted Up.
Thank you, Alfred, for taking the time to talk with me.
My pleasure. And you're listening to Be Lifted Up, a special edition, Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. We'll be right back.